Hi there. So in this video I'm going to create a sales banner or call to action using a combination of the cover block and gradients. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a group block, and the reason I like to add groups is because I like to contain things, and also it will allow me to use the full width alignment on inner blocks. Now don't worry if you're worried about the markup, the overhead will be minimal, trust me. Next I'm going to add a cover block. I'm not going to add an image right away, but I do want to set this to full width alignment. And in my settings I want to set the overlay to gradient. Now I'm going to pick a red gradient, but it doesn't actually matter what I choose because I'm going to change these colors anyway. So ensuring I've got my cover block selected, I can now change the gradient. And I want to make my first color point white. And I'm going to add another color point here, and I'm going to make this color a dark red, right about there. And I'm going to copy that because I want the same color red as another color point here. And then my end color, I want to make that white. So now I want to change the angle to just off 180 degrees, so something like 179, and now you get that diagonal effect. So now with that set, I can squeeze my two colours together at each end until I get a hard edge. Once I've got that hard edge, you'll start to see that you can create this kind of diagonal banner effect. So I've got my hard edge now, and I'm going to do that on the other side. Pull that in until I get a hard edge. Great, perfect. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a heading block. And the heading block is going to say something like sale on now. And I want to make that centered. And I'll change the color to that of white. I also want to bring the font size up to say 5M. And also want to make it bold, just to make it stand out a little bit more. Perfect. Now from here I'm going to add in a buttons block. And making sure I've got my buttons block selected, I want to make that justification centered. Now because I don't like this pill look, I'm going to make sure that I adjust the round edges of this button to make them more subtle. I'm going to change the color of the background to orange and make the text black. And I'm going to change the text to go to shop. Now you can adjust all this to make sure it's absolutely as you like. Maybe you want to take some margin out just to squeeze the two elements together perhaps. Now the beauty of doing it this way for a horizontal banner, we check our mobile. You can see that it almost works, but we need to make some adjustments, but it kind of works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that heading and I'm just going to take out some of the line space, which is actually referred to as line height. Now if you're old school like me, it would be called leading or line space in old money. I'm going to squeeze that out a bit more, maybe say 0.9. And I mean, that looks okay to me, but you can adjust it a little bit more if you like. Maybe you want to put some more margins on the buttons block. Squeeze out a little bit more just to give it a bit more space. And there you've got a fairly good looking banner, and it looks pretty good on desktop and mobile. Now I'm going to duplicate this because I want to create a variation. So if I go to my list view and select my group, I want to duplicate. This time I'm going to put an image into the cover. So with my cover block selected, I want to add media. I have some uploaded images already, and I'm going to use this fashion looking image. So immediately you can see that the colors have reset. So I need to go back to my cover settings and set the overlay to 100%. But what we need to do is to adjust our colors so that we can pull the image through as part of the banner. And to do that, all we need to do is to pick our color points and just knock that back to 0. By adjusting the alpha transparency, and again, we can do the same for the bottom color. I have to open up the color points to select the end colors so I can set the alpha transparency back to 0. And now all I need to do is to squeeze these color points back together just to bring back that hard edge, just like so. They can be a bit tricky to adjust these points to get them where you want without breaking past that hard edge sweet spot, but persevere, you'll get there. Now that's the same but with an image, and clearly there's a bit of an issue here with the contrast, but we can resolve that, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But first we check our mobile view, and that looks okay to me. So let's just resolve this contrast issue. What we need to do is go back to our cover block. From our list view, select the cover, go to the settings, and we just need to adjust the alpha transparency of the color. Now ensuring that I've got my color point selected and adjust the opacity. Now if you don't want to use the red color, you can darken the image by changing it to black, and you can see that the contrast is much better now. And so we fixed the effect of the overlay without losing the contrast of our text over the top of our image. And again, you can similarly do the same thing for your bottom color if you want to. But generally you get the gist of creating that banner effect, but rather than a solid color, we're now using an image. And again, we can take this further. Again, if I duplicate this group block by going to my list view and select duplicate, this time I want to do a similar effect but in reverse, so I get the red banner effect under my text, but then I have an image in the background. You'll understand what I mean once you see it. So first I'm going to change the image so I've got something a little bit more arbitrary to work with. And I've got these scarves or rack of materials. I'm just going to drop that in, and I'm going to go back to my settings and overlay, and this time I want to reverse the way that these colors work. So I need to adjust the transparency again. But this time, this needs to be 0 on the outside. And then the inner color, we need to bring back that red color in full. So we want to set the opacity for that back to 100%. And again, we can do that on the other side. So we want to bring this red back by copying the same red I've got here and paste it into this color point, and then adjust the opacity to 100%. Now this color on the end needs to be set to an opacity of 0. And all that remains for me to do now is to just squeeze these colors up so I get my hard edge back. But we can see that our image is coming through the background color, and that's because our opacity overlay is set to 50%, which means that the color is overlaid 50%, therefore the image is coming through 50% underneath that color. For now, I just want to get this hard edge back. So this 50% opacity may be the desired effect, but I want to bring back the red color in full strength, so I want to set that to 100%. So if I adjust the overlay opacity to set that to 100, and bear in mind you can still adjust these red banner color points to bring them closer to the text, make it narrower if you wish. Then if you check your mobile, just make sure you've got enough space around your banner for it to not look a bit weird. And now we can check our mobile view, and we can see that it breaks out of our red banner. Which we can resolve this by either reducing the text, and that's one way to resolve it. Another way to resolve it is to actually select your group block and go to the settings and change the settings for the minimum height. And you can just make it larger. And this has another effect. It brings more of the image back, which makes it more impactful, and it shows more of the product. And you may want to use a combination of changing the text size as well as increasing the minimum height. Maybe reduce it to 3.5 and squeeze your buttons up, and reduce the margins to bring it closer together a little bit more. And you can carry on adjusting the color overlay until you get your desired effect. Just like I said, it can be a little bit tricky to get these right, but if you persevere, you'll get the effect that you want eventually. And it is rather tricky. There you go. So perfect. So I'll just check my desktop view, and that looks good. Looks okay to me. So now there we have it. There are 3 different banner effects or call to actions, whatever you want to call them. And you can use these on your website, on your business website, or your e-commerce website. So there you have it. And as always, if you've liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.